Our mountains weep today, and our rivers run salty with the tears. Our senator, our advocate, our brother and our friend has left us to be with Irma and with you.
In one of the 5 books that Senator Byrd authored, he said, "We must study the great figures of our history and carry them forward in our imaginations as living, breathing presences. We can, in effect, consult on vital issues of the day." Without question, Senator Robert C. Byrd is a pillar in our nation's history. His leadership and influence have stretched well beyond the borders of our mountain state.
For about a quarter of the time our government has existed, Senator Byrd stood like a sentry in a 3-piece suit watching over the legislative branch. But here in West Virginia, one can't help but be reminded first and foremost of the challenges he overcame to achieve all this. It's one of the glories of our country that success isn't restricted to the connected or the well-born, that anyone with enough talent and drive can rise to the heights of power and prestige.
Senator Byrd was in so many ways the embodiment of what it is to be a West Virginian. He made me and all of us so proud to be West Virginians. He took such pure joy and ferocious, unyielding pride, not just in the Senate as an institution, but frankly in pulling the levers of power for West Virginia and West Virginians, for people, for education veterans, for health care, for economic opportunity. He reveled in the power that he had through the grace of his persistence and the intensity of his focus. It was in his blood. It was his sacred cause.
You know, I just never really thought he'd die. Just never really thought he would. Although this day is not unexpected, it is unexpectedly difficult to stand here to say goodbye to Senator Robert C. Byrd, our senator, our chairman, our mentor, our friend, our big daddy. He was so eloquent, so erudite, that it is daunting to find the words that can encompass the enormity of the man and all that he has left behind.
He served in our nation's Congress for more than a quarter of the time our country has existed, and longer than a quarter of today's sitting senators and the president have been alive. It's by virtue of his endurance that Robert Byrd knew and worked with many of the greats of American history. But it is because of his enduring virtue that he will forever be remembered as one of these greats. His career cannot alone be counted in the time he worked. Rather, we should measure it in the lives of those for whom he worked. His accomplishments aren't in the sum of the millions of dollars he brought back to cities like Huntington, Wheeling, and Beckley, but the millions of families he brought out of the same poverty that he endured.
I was once ragging him about all the federal money he was hauling down to West Virginia. And it was bad for me. I mean, I was from Arkansas. We weren't much better off than you. We weren't any better off than you. And every friend I had in Arkansas said, "He's just a senator. You're sitting in the White House. We don't get squat compared to what they get. What is the matter with you?" I was getting the living daylights beat out of me about once a week. So I said to him early in my first term, I said, "You know, Senator, if you pave every single inch of West Virginia, it's going to be much harder to mine coal." And he smiled and he said, "The Constitution does not prohibit humble servants from delivering whatever they can to their constituents."
I always wear a flag pin, but I was afraid he'd be looking down today because every time I'd wear the flag pin on the floor, he would grab me, take my pin, and put on a Constitution pin. That's the pin I'm wearing. So, boss, I'm wearing the pin. Robert C. Byrd said many things, but he once said, as long as there is a forum in which questions can be asked by men and women who do not stand in awe of a chief executive, and one can speak as long as one's feet will allow one to stand, the liberties of the American people will be secure. 11 presidents knew Robert C. Byrd. He served, as he pointed out, concurrently with them, not under them. And 11 presidents, where they all here and 2 are here, can attest to the fact that he always showed respect, but never deference, and he stood in awe of none.
I want you all to know that all America shares your loss. May we all find comfort in a verse of Scripture that reminds me of our dear friend. The time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. It's interesting that you've heard that passage from several speakers now, because it embodies somebody who knew how to run a good and long race, and somebody who knew how to keep the faith with his state, with his family, with his country and his Constitution. Now, years from now, when I think of the man we memorialize today, I'll remember him as he was when I came to know him. His white hair full, like a mane, his gait steadied with a cane, determined to make the most of every last breath. The distinguished gentleman from West Virginia could be found at his desk until the very end, doing the people's business, delivering soul-stirring speeches, a hint of the Appalachians in his voice, stabbing the air with his finger, fiery as ever, years into his 10th decade. He was a Senate icon. He was a party leader. He was an elder statesman. And he was my friend.